all that kind of good stuff. It was a lot of fun. So
And
check out the
there,
recording. It was
and
was
there was
great.
one topic there which I actually did a deep dive in after the show, and
You
that
did.
was the story of Titanic being replaced by the Olympic ship. Now, I
Yep.
had looked at this story before, but not in exhaustive detail. So I thought after the show, because I'm quite interested in the Titanic story.
Right.
I've seen a lot of videos on it. I've done quite a lot of looking up information on it. I always found Titanic somehow a fascinating story. So I
Right.
thought it was time to do a deep dive on the Olympic exchange thing. And
Right.
I looked at a few videos where people were trying to discredit the all the hoaxes or all the conspiracy theories, because I wanted to know what they were saying. Maybe they had something I'd missed. And of course, the number one topic they talked about was discounting the Olympic and Titanic switch theory. But the reasons they gave, what I thought were pretty weak. I mean, one such argument was, well, it can't have been done because they would have had to all exchange the furniture between the two ships, because each piece of furniture is stamped with the number. Okay.
That is correct.
Well,
Or the name of the ship that it's on, and all the plates and everything else were specifically designed to be on a specific ship.
right, but moving the plates from one ship to another is not going to be a major issue.
Right.
Um, so the Olympic was number 400, and the Titanic was labeled number 401.
Uh huh.
So for me, I decided, well, there are specific differences in the way they look. Okay.
Yes. Yes, there are.
In,
Uh huh.
in particularly on the sea deck, underneath where the bridge is, there's a section where it goes up, and you have on one ship you have square windows, and on the other one you have slits.
Right.
Okay.
And also the
Now,
portholes are different on the Titanic
well, that's right. Yeah,
than
they
they
are
are on the
they are
Olympic.
portholes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I looked into that because I thought, well, that's something which is easily recognized from above. Now we know that the ship, which is down under the sea, the wreck, has the version with the slits in it. Okay. So
Okay.
that is because we got video evidence of that, we know that is the ship which sank. So the question is, which of the two ships had the slits on the side? So how do you determine this? At some point, they're going to have switched the nameplates and things, if this
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
true. So what I did was I looked at very early pictures of the Titanic. And in fact, I can tell you exactly from when it was. It was when it was launched. Its very first launch into the water. It was not at a point where it could sail anywhere. It didn't have any engines in it. It still needed to be outfitted, which took a year. But the actual first time that hull hit the water, and was filmed and photographs were taken. And if you look at the photographs of that section of the ship, it very clearly has the square windows, not the slits. Very
Yeah.
clearly.
Very clearly.
Very clearly. At that point, and that's when it was launched, we know exactly that was the right ship, Titanic. It had the square windows, not the slits. And early pictures of the Olympic showed the slits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're already halfway there.
Right.
But the other question is, what did the Olympic look like after the sinking?
Right.
Because that's then the only ship left. And the Olympic, after the shipping, had these squarish windows,
Uh-huh.
not the slits, because the ship
Uh-huh.
with the slits had gone underwater.
Uh-huh.
Now,
And
some people came back and said, look, but all the furniture was stamped with the numbers, so they couldn't possibly fake that. There's a hotel in the UK which bought up the wooden panels for the dining room of the Olympic when it was broken up. Okay. So because when in 1937 the Olympic was sold for scrap, and they were auctioning off the furniture and stuff. And this hotel bought the furniture for the entire dining room. It's still there. Yeah, you can see the original wood furniture in that hotel. And when they got the wood, on it was stamped both 400 and 401. Both numbers were on that.
Uh-huh.
Not just the one. If it had been just 401, then that would have kind of proved, oh, it must have been the Titanic, it must have been the Olympic which went down. Or if it was stamped with just 400, it must have been the Olympic, the Titanic which went down. But it had both numbers, which tend to suggest it was originally stamped with 401 because it was the Titanic. And then after the switch, they went around stamping the 400 onto it as well, because it's very hard to remove these numbers, but you can stamp an extra number on it. So after that research, I thought, I did more research than that. I checked, but I thought those items alone pretty much proves that it was the Olympic, which.
Well, there's a lot more to the story than just what Peter is saying. The Olympic was the one that went down. Okay, that much we do know. Okay, and the Titanic was still afloat, but going as the Olympic. All right.
Yes.
So now, why was it? Why was it switched like that? Well, because originally the Olympic was damaged in a tugboat accident in the same area where the iceberg struck that same ship. Okay, so they were trying to collect insurance money in order for the Olympic after the tugboat accident, and it wasn't insured yet. It had not been insured before. So they had to go into repairs, and they were planning on sending out the Olympic first before the Titanic. Okay? But they couldn't. All right?
I did investigate that story, and to be fair, and this is what a lot of the debunking videos will tell you, the damage did look pretty bad, but it cost $175,000, which is a lot of money at the time.
Well, a lot of money back then, yeah.
But it took them a few weeks to fully repair that damage. So it was not like totally impossible, and that 175,000 was not going to bankrupt Harland and Wolff.
Right.
And the ship itself, back then, each ship cost $7.5 million to build.
A lot of money. Lot of money back then.
And the Titanic or Olympic, whatever you like, the ship which went down was insured for $5 million. That means they did take a loss on the insurance claim.
Right. Yeah. But here's the thing. They sent the Olympic out as the Titanic because they knew they were going to sink it. Why were they going to sink it? Okay. It was all planned. All right. And they killed 3 birds with 1 stone. Okay. They got the insurance money. They got the headlines and everything about the White Star Line trying to go across and everything else. They killed off a bunch of people, but there were 3 people on that boat that got killed. There was supposed to be a 4th, all right, but he got wind of it before it actually sailed from Southampton, and that was J.P. Morgan.
Well, he was the owner of White Star Lines at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So he was already in on the story.
He was in on the story. He got off in Southampton, all right, but there were 3 people who died on that: Guggenheim, Strauss, and Astor. Okay. And what were they against? They were against the creation of the Federal Reserve. Okay? They were the 3 chief people against the Federal Reserve. Now, the Titanic, Olympic, went down in 1912. What happened in 1913? Okay? The creation of the Federal Reserve here in the United States, signed off by Woodrow Wilson. Now, if you'd like to read more about this story, I suggest the book The Creature from Jekyll Island. Okay,
That's right. That's the book.
that's a great book. Okay, it will
So
explain everything about the Federal Reserve and what happened.
so
Okay,
the banking system we are still in, the fiat money system, could only happen because the Titanic went down, even if it
exactly.
was even if it was the relabeled Olympic.
So
Um,
there's your tie-in, folks.
That's right. So, it was a very, very important point in history for banking as well. And of course, it was now apparently the original plan was to have another ship nearby, that was the California,
Mm-hmm.
in order to pick up the passengers. And the California was there. But for some reason, um, the California saw that the ship was firing off flares. I mean, they weren't that far away, like
No,
50
they weren't.
miles or something.
Right,
Um, but they did not. They did not use their radio. Their Marconi radio operator had gone to sleep,
right,
and in fact, the story goes a little bit further back than that. Apparently, the radio operator on Titanic was very rude to the California, uh, and that's when the California guy decided just to pack in and go to bed. Of course, they didn't have anybody manning the radio on that ship overnight.
right.
But it's very interesting that the captain of the California, who must have been in on it, and was there with a ship ready to pick up the people, that he knew it was a Titanic, and then he saw that the ship was in distress. They were firing distress flares, admittedly not at the right time. Apparently the correct interval at that time was one flare every minute, and they were only getting up one flare every 5 minutes. But all the same, he could have just said, "Look, there's something happening over there. Why don't we go and have a look?" They could have easily started up their engines and just sailed over there, and they could have saved the day, but they didn't. And
But
I
they
think
didn't.
that's suspicious.
Very, very suspicious. Yes.
We also know that the captain of the Titanic was a Freemason
Yes, that is correct.
and was most likely in on the story. In fact, he was very high in the Freemasons. And
Mm-hmm.
it is very, very possible that he knew from the start that it was his job to sink the ship with those three people.
Full speed through an ice flow. At that
It's
time,
reckless.
very reckless. But he wanted
Very
to set a
reckless.
speed record, supposedly.
Well, that's the
Okay.
excuse. That's the
Yep.
excuse.
Yep. People were paid off. That's for sure. But it was funny that he went down with the ship and not saved, or did he?
Well, captains always go down with the ship. That's tradition.
Yeah, I know.
Unless, of course, you've got, they're the last person to leave the ship. Put it this way.
Right, unless they're dressed like a woman.
Well, okay, we know he was not dressed like a woman. But there were passengers, there were male passengers that did dress up as women in order to get into lifeboats.
In fact, the president of the White Star Line did that. Okay, and got on the boat with Molly Brown.
You mean Ismay?
Yes.
No, but he didn't he didn't dress up as a woman. He just got in at a time when it's in the movie. Yeah,
I know it. I know it's in the movie. I know
it's in the movie. He took. It was an opportunity. At this moment, they'd given the order to lower the ship. There was still a space there. He just jumped in.
Right.